Welcome to this episode in the Sabbatical 101 live coaching series, where I bring you behind the scenes of a real sabbatical strategy session with academics from across disciplines. These live coaching sessions give you insight into the questions and worries fellow academics have about their sabbaticals and the practical strategies and mindset shifts that go into planning a life-changing sabbatical. Whether you're dreaming of your first sabbatical or you're in the midst of planning one, I hope these candid conversations will help normalize concerns and challenges around sabbatical planning, provide you with some practical ways forward, and help you get inspired to make the most of your sabbatical. This live coaching session is about Courtney Burns' year-long sabbatical at home and her plans to get publications out the door and write a book manuscript. Like so many of my clients and the faculty I've spoken to in these live coaching sessions, Courtney also wants to use her time to focus on hobbies and personal pursuits that she doesn't usually have time for during the academic year. We talk a lot about creating a balance between personal needs and professional goals during sabbatical, and I think you're also going to find Courtney's idea for structuring her sabbatical as a series of writing sprints followed by rest really interesting and inspiring. Dr. Courtney Burns is an associate professor of political science at Bucknell University. She studies the intersection of gender and foreign policy and has been published in International Studies Perspective, Journals, Journal of Conflict Resolution, Journal of Human Rights, amongst others. Courtney is a mom, wife for mom, and enjoys reading romantasy books in her free time. Now here's the episode. Hey, Courtney, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm really excited to dig in and hear about your upcoming sabbatical. Before we do that, could you just introduce yourself and tell our listeners where you are and what you study?
Sure. I'm Courtney Burns. I am a political scientist at Bucknell University. My research primarily focuses on the domestic and foreign policies of women presidents and prime ministers, but I also dabble in gender processes and international politics broadly. So things like gender and terrorism, for example.
Okay. And so this is your first sabbatical, is that correct?
This is my first sabbatical, my first leave of any kind as a professor, which started, my tenure track started in 2015. So it's been a long time.
This is a long time coming. And so I'd imagine you're feeling, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but feeling like you want to make the most of it because this is the first break you've had in a long time.
Yes, absolutely. And this is basically my view is this is going to propel me to full. So I can go up for full a year after my sabbatical, and I would like to. So I want to be productive enough to kind of propel that promotion.
Okay, great. Yeah. So it sounds like one of the questions you might have is how do I use the time most effectively to make that really smooth and kind of get some momentum toward going up for full?
Yes, 100%.
Great. So before we talk about those questions, I do want to acknowledge that our sabbaticals are never just about us and our research. Most of us have families or caregiving responsibilities or pets that factor into our sabbatical. So would you mind just saying a little bit about who your people are during this sabbatical so we can also be thinking about how your sabbatical affects your whole ecosystem?
Yes. So I guess next year for this, I will have a fourth grader and a first grader and a partner. And then I think what is a unique complication and help all wrapped up in one is that my parents live with me as well. So it comes with pros and cons of that it can come with. And of course, animals too. So there's just a lot in terms of like the people around me that also rely on me during that time.
Sure. And the caregiving does not stop just because you're on sabbatical. And I think one of the things that I often talk to clients about a lot is what is that caregiving landscape going to look like during sabbatical? Are there ways it might change or does it remain the same? And for each person, there's a different answer to that based on their own circumstances and the constellation of factors that they're thinking about.
Absolutely. And I think one of the struggles for me, at least, is that I have parents who don't understand academia, that just because you're not working physically 8 to 5 at a location doesn't mean that you're not working or that you're working. So I think that comes with complications of like, I'm home, or, yeah, I don't have to teach, but I do still have work to do. And so that makes it a little bit more complicated sometimes too, in terms of, hey, could you take care of my kid today, despite the fact that I don't have a class to teach?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this comes up so much with my clients and people I talk to about their sabbaticals. I actually did a podcast episode about how to talk to your family about your sabbatical, because we often think about what are the professional boundaries I need to put in place with students or colleagues, advisees. But then you're absolutely right. Sometimes our family members see us on sabbatical. I remember my mom I remember overhearing her talking to a friend one time when she was at my house and saying, "Oh yeah, Bethany doesn't teach today, so she's not working." I was like,
Right.
well, actually I am. And so sabbatical is even harder to understand because you do have a lot more time and you probably won't be spending all of that time even on work, and that's okay. In fact, I would advocate you shouldn't be spending all of your time working on sabbatical, because part of the goal is to have it be restorative and have you go back feeling like you're ready to re-engage.
Yes, I really need that too, right? Like, I think especially in the aftermath of COVID, is that, and with AI, like being in the classroom is actually a lot more of a burden than it's been in the past, in terms of having to think through these things in ways that we haven't prior to COVID and AI. And so there really is a burnout to being a professor that I don't think existed, or at least it didn't exist in the same way previously as it does now. And I feel that really deeply going into this as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And your kids, because mine are around the same age. So you had like preschool and daycare age kids going through COVID. And that was really hard, having no childcare. And then for us, even those couple years post, 21, 22 were still very uncertain in terms of like, you never knew when daycare was going to shut down for a couple weeks. So it's been a lot. And AI is complicating everything about teaching. So absolutely, it makes sense that part of this sabbatical needs to be recovery for you. It sounds like getting over burnout.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've already talked about this a little bit. But I do want to ask you this question. As you think about your upcoming sabbatical, what is your greatest desire for your sabbatical? Or if you had to complete the sentence, "I'll know my sabbatical was a success because," what would you say?
Because I have published at least 2 articles and started and made very good progress. This is like an ideal world. I don't know if this is all achievable, but
That's okay.
made really good progress on a book manuscript.
Okay.
So I do have a couple articles that are in the pipeline. So it's not like I would be starting from scratch on all of these projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to see through at least 2 articles, and then, like I said, a book manuscript in really good shape by the end of it.
Okay. And in terms of what we were just talking about with burnout, would another desire be to feel less burned out, to feel rested? How would you describe what you want to feel by the end of sabbatical that's different from how you feel now?
I suppose there is a desire to I'm not excited to go into the classroom, but there is a tiredness in dealing with students sometimes that I feel. And so I suppose less of that would be nice. Yeah, coming out of sabbatical with that.
Okay. And so as you think about your sabbatical, what do you see as the biggest challenge standing in the way of, maybe we can start with the publications, like getting these 2 articles out the door and then also making good progress on a book?
I think time management is difficult given the burnout kind of feelings, is how to balance taking time and not feeling guilty about taking that time in particular, with having a balanced schedule that is productive. So, what does that look like? Does that look like taking the mornings off and working in the afternoons? Does it look like taking a week off, working for a week? I'm not sure. And so I think that's definitely one of the biggest areas that I have questions about.
Yeah. Yeah. Because on the one hand, you don't want to go into sabbatical and just put your head down and work as much as you normally do, because then you'll probably be even more tired by the end.
Right.
But I think there's always this concern that when we're used to going all the time, and you've been going all the time in faculty positions for the past 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a concern when I get out of my routines and I let up on the gas a little, what if it all falls apart and I can't do the things that I was planning to do?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so I've been at predominantly teaching institutions or institutions that care a lot about teaching, right? And so my semesters are very structured where I go in and I teach, and then maybe I carve a day out a week if I'm lucky to do research. But then I do these like writing boot camps that universities that I'm at have offered. And that's kind of how I've gotten a lot of my work done, is through very structured time. Whereas this is going to be very unstructured. And so setting a schedule, sticking to it is definitely a concern I have about it.
Mm-hmm. And what's worked for you in the past? Have you had summers where you don't have a lot of structure, you're not teaching? Are there any lessons learned either about what works or what doesn't work from those times?
That's a good question. I have. Typically, what's worked is usually putting my head down and going for about a month of working. So, like, I'm going to go in Monday through Friday for 5 to 6 hours, and I'm going to work. Usually meeting up with a friend has been helpful, and doing like the Pomodoros. That's probably been the way I've been the most successful in the summer, when it's been more free time.
And it sounds like going into your office or being out of the house provides good structure for you.
I don't think I can work from home at all.
Okay.
I'm getting kicked out of my office for my sabbatical, but I have requested, and I think I'll probably get a like small office in our library.
Okay. So you'll have a space, and that might be nice to, I mean, it stinks to have to move out of your office, but it might be nice to have a space away from your department to kind of keep you out of the things that happen in departments that are kind of nice to be away from during sabbatical.
Yes. Yeah. And the distractions, right? Of like wanting to chit chat or something like that too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the 2 articles you've already been working on them. Is that right? Or you have some other things in the pipeline?
Yep.
And then the book project, is this something new? Tell me a little bit more about kind of where these projects are and where you'll be stepping into them on sabbatical.
So there's one article that like I've just presented at conferences. It's a co-authored piece with a friend, and we have 2 publications together already, so we work well together. And so it's movable. Not quickly, because we have to do some significant thinking about the theory, but it's movable I think could be out for review in the fall quite easily. Mm-hmm. Another is a piece that I've put on the back burner for a couple years because there's some data issues. And so now I have some time to think about the data issues. And so theoretically has gotten good feedback, but it's more just a hang up on some data stuff. So those are both, I think, in actually pretty good shape to be out in the fall. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm left with the book manuscript. So I was working on a project with a friend for a book, and she's taken an admin role. And so her ability to work on it has just gone away, basically. And so we've agreed that maybe we just turn this project that we've been working on into an article. Okay. So that's another one, but still very much in its infancy. But I have an idea for a book project, but this would then be starting from total scratch. So I mentioned I do work on women leaders and foreign and domestic policies. And one of the areas that I've been doing a lot of stuff on research is counterterrorism practices of women leaders. And so I've been doing some archival work on Margaret Thatcher, and I would love to bring this archival work onto paper. And so that's kind of where I'm circling around, is a book that has a general theory on the counterterrorism practices of women leaders, and then some cases of 2 or 3 leaders.
So it sounds like there are two distinct buckets, let's say. There are these articles where they're in different stages, but it feels like if I just had some concentrated time to work on these, they could be submitted for publication. And then the book project seems more maybe initially exploratory. I mean, it sounds like you have a clear idea of what the book will be about, but I would imagine as you start digging into archives and doing some of the research, things may change a little bit.
Yeah.
And is with a book in your field, would the idea be to write the manuscript or to write a proposal? How does that usually work in your field?
It can go either way, quite honestly. My goal is to have a more completed manuscript, just because I know that once I'm back to teaching, that's the hard part, right? Is getting, so I could do a prospectus essentially and send it around and, say, give me a year, 18 months, and I'll have a manuscript to you. But you can also have a manuscript and circulate it that way. And that would be my preference with this one.
Okay, so I want to step away from the project. If you'll indulge me for a moment, and then we will come back to the project. Sure. But I do like to do an exercise where you just picture yourself on sabbatical, because I think, it's one thing to make a list of the projects and the tasks that need to get done, but it's another thing to connect with, like, what do I actually want this time to feel like? And to think about that first and center it, and then plug the projects into it. So if you picture yourself during your sabbatical, what does it feel like? And how is that different from what you feel now on a day-to-day basis?
I think one of the biggest things that it feels like is that there's time. So there's time to do things like work out with regularity, take care of myself in a way that sometimes gets put aside during the semester. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that what it feels like is that there's time to do these things. Both things that I regularly put aside because, the job is more important, like working out, but also that there's then time to get to campus, do some research, and I've been able to be productive in whatever that might look like on a given day. So yeah, I think that's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question.
Yeah, great. And I think that's such a great image. And it calls to mind just this idea of, whereas your normal day-to-day, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure it's not uncommon that it feels like, okay, I'm going from class to a meeting to this, and like, oh my gosh, I have to go pick up the kids at school, right? Yeah. And there's a frenetic energy sometimes, and you're just exhausted by the end of the day, and then you get up and you start it again. And so a sabbatical can be a time where you are getting a lot of this really deep work done. Not having teaching and service commitments obviously frees up a lot of time for writing, but then also you're able to do the things that we all need to figure out how to take care of ourselves if we're going to have sustainable careers and continue contributing to our families and, and our communities and things. So it's a great opportunity to see what it feels like to have a little bit more spaciousness and to be able to prioritize your own well-being and to build those habits that then the goal when I work with clients is like, how can we create habits and routines that then you carry forward? It's not just something that happens during your sabbatical, but you see this kind of qualitative change and you realize like, oh, I actually have to prioritize this because I can't be good at my job if I'm not also taking care of myself.
Yes, I really like the way you phrase that about making routines that can carry over. Like I really feel that in terms of the importance of it for myself and my career and my own like mental health with this job and everything. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so related to that, I want you to picture yourself, imagine yourself, probably a year from now, because you'll have a year-long sabbatical. So even further into the future, which feels like a long time. And again, when we think about that spaciousness, it's like, wow, that's what a gift to have this year that you can really focus on yourself and your work. How do you imagine you'll feel by the end of your sabbatical? And what do you think you'll tell other people about your sabbatical?
Well, I want to feel rested and I want to feel a sense of rejuvenation, which feels kind of silly to say, but they're right, like an excitement again for academia. What do I want to tell people about it? That's a good question. I suppose telling people that I feel rested and that I was able to be productive. Not even that things like got done, right? But that there was productivity that happened. Yeah, I think that that's probably what I would hope that I tell people.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm just noticing, again, I think we often set out to plan sabbaticals and we think so much about the scholarly products that will come out of it. But I'm just noticing that the first thing you said that you would want to feel and then tell people about your sabbatical is like, I feel rested, I feel rejuvenated. And I think there really is something to be said for being able to come out of sabbatical and feel like I'm excited to dig back in. It doesn't feel like such drudgery to like go into the classroom every day, or I'm only getting my writing done in the margins when I'm not teaching, which, is not the way most of us envisioned academia when we set out to do a PhD. There are ways that a sabbatical can be very productive and also rejuvenating, not productive and just kind of like, I'm still on the hamster wheel, I'm just cranking things out, but where you do get, because there's more time, you get to do some thinking too. It's not always just about like write. You have time to sit with ideas like this new book project. I'm guessing there's going to need to be time to do some reading and some marinating in ideas. It's not just going to be constant writing in the sense of like putting something down on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will say that even it's funny, there's also that like looming academic dread of saying when I come out of my sabbatical, I want to feel rested, of like, it's like hanging over me like a cloud of like, are you sure about that? Is it actually a good sabbatical if you're rested? I feel that dread, you know what I mean? It's like that ever present academic dread of it. But really what's at the forefront is that feeling rested.
Yeah. And would you say that dread is like, but is that actually what is expected of me? Like they're not giving me a sabbatical just to rest, right? Yes. They're giving me a sabbatical to make progress on my scholarship.
Yep. Yeah. And there have been comments from colleagues when they ask, like, what are you planning to do over sabbatical? I have to say, oh, I'm going to get these things out so I can go up for full. And they're like, that's good. That's right. So there's also that kind of, we do this to ourselves, pressure sometimes. Old guard people, right, who've been in academia a long time, who are like, yeah, that's right. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's still not totally my priority of like head down, work. And I physically can't. I can't. So
I don't think any of us can. I feel like there might be, if that's the old guard, I want to be part of the new guard. And I want to be someone who says, take the first month or two of your sabbatical off, let yourself rest, right? Like lean into what you need. And I'm not saying you specifically, but I'm just saying, I think that there's this real value to actually listening to ourselves and trusting ourselves. Most of us, we didn't get into academia. We did not become, tenure track professors or, and get tenure because we're like lazy and unmotivated. Right. So what I tell people I work with is like, I have no doubt that you are very smart and very motivated. And so it's not that you can't accomplish what you set out to accomplish. But I think sometimes we worry if we rest, we're not going to get back into it, or we're only being successful if we're going all the time. And I think to some extent, that's what it's because in academia, even once you get tenure, there's always the next thing, right? So you never kind of reach the pinnacle and then get to enjoy it because there's always something else you have to produce. And so I think for our own well-being, giving ourselves time to rest, I guess I think that's the only way that we can have, that this can be sustainable, right? If we want to keep making our highest contribution to our field and to our department and to our students, we have to also prioritize ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Even though no administrator is going to be like, write in your sabbatical application about how you're going to take care of yourself.
You're going to rest.
It sounds like you're needing a combination of that. Like you talked about wondering what would a schedule on sabbatical look like. So I wonder if you want to dig into that a little bit and imagine some different possibilities for
Yeah.
what a routine could be like for you during sabbatical?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
So what time of day do you work best?
So usually like 10 a.m., 11 a.m. to 3:30, I work best.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Some of that is cognitively, that's when I work best. And some of it is just like schedule wise, right? Like getting the kids to school. So
Yeah.
yeah, usually midday-ish, I work best.
Okay. So let's imagine that many days of the week you have then that midday chunked out for writing. What's happening before that? You mentioned getting the kids to school. Do you have time after the kids are off to school and before you would start working?
Yeah. So that's my favorite time of day to get a workout in. So going, and conveniently my gym is right by my kids' elementary school. So dropping kids off at school, going to the gym, coming home, taking a shower, getting ready, going to campus. That's that kind of 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock window. And it also gives me time to do it, not like rush, 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 gotta
Yeah.
take the fastest shower known to man to get to
Yeah.
campus kind of thing. So gives me time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then let's say you get to your office in the library around 10 or so, and you're working on work articles or the manuscript until 3:30. Are you then picking the kids up from school after that?
Yep. So that would be, 4 o'clock is usually when I get them from like after school care. So that's the 3:30 window is sometimes like gives me 30 minutes to unwind for a minute before I go and get the kids from school. But yeah, I'm typically responsible for that, for getting the
Okay.
kids. We live in a small town, as you know. You went to Bucknell. We live in a small town, and so my husband uses an e-bike, and so we only have one car. And that's usually I'm the one that uses the car, so it's my
Okay.
responsibility. Yep.
Awesome. So that feels like that's the day, getting the kids ready for school, go to the gym, shower, go work. Are there other things you want to be doing during your sabbatical, like hobbies that you've sidelined or just things that you enjoy doing that you haven't been able to make time for because of just being busy? You're a mom, you've been on the tenure track.
Yeah, I do embroidery. And so oftentimes during the semester that gets put aside. But the two biggest hobbies I have are embroidery and reading. And reading is the easier of the two, right? Because I just have to pick up my Kindle and I can start reading. And so that's usually the one that gets favored during the semester, right? Kids are in bed. Finally, I have a couple hours before I'm going to bed. I just pick up my Kindle. Or gaming with my husband. So like we play video games or we'll play board games, that kind of thing. But those are much easier than picking up and starting a new embroidery project. So I would love to like spend a little bit more time on it, continue to get better. And I have some ideas of some things I want to do that combine my reading embroidery
Oh,
hobbies. Yeah. I saw this really cool thing. It's a sweat. You get like a plain sweatshirt and then you embroider like a little logo or something from each book you read, like up the sleeves of each side. So it's almost tracking like the books you've read for the year, books that you like. So I want to do that.
oh, that sounds so cool. So
Yeah.
that would be like a sabbatical project?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm wondering, as you think then about this daily rhythm that you've envisioned, how could you tweak it to make time for some reading and some embroidery? Do you want any of that to happen during the day and have some days that you work a little less and embroider a little more?
Yeah, I would like to have that. And that's where I'm thinking through. Sometimes it works for me to, okay, for 2 weeks, I'm going to work, and then 2 weeks, I'm going to take time off.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of one option for timing that I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
That was the other kind of like, okay, well, maybe do I take the mornings to just kind of hang out, take care of myself, embroider, whatever I want to do until say 12 or 12:30. And then I go and work for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I think they would be a very productive 3 hours, right? If I'm able, like, there's not the pressure.
Yeah.
Sometimes the pressure on it is like, oh, I'm going to check my phone instead. So without that pressure, it's like, oh, I can go be productive for 3 hours. I know I have that. So both of those are things that I think could work. Yeah.
I think both of those ideas are really great. There's one version where you're I'm almost envisioning it as these sprints. Like, I don't know if you've listened to Kathy Mazak's podcast. She talks about writing sprints, and this is a practice that I've adopted and find really effective when you have, especially in your case, where you have these things that just like they're so close and they need to get out the door. Mm-hmm. So I'll do this where I try to block off for 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, I'm working on this article and I'm going to try to work for 2 hours a day on it or 3 hours a day and block off my calendar. So yeah, I think it's something that you can play around with too. I mean, you have a year, so you don't have to lock yourself into one way of doing things. You could say, okay, I'm going to choose one of these approaches, try it for a couple weeks and see how it works, and then make a plan to check in with yourself and say, like, how did that go? What was I feeling? Is it giving me the kind of spaciousness that I wanted in my schedule? Is it giving me the kind of rhythm that I was hoping for? And then you can tweak it. If you find that it's not going the way you wanted.
Yeah, I think that could work. I think I feel regimented enough to try that. But I really like that you talked about not being able to work for 5 months, right? Like just having that burnout. I could see taking August off, right, entirely. Mm-hmm. And my kids are going to be home for the summer, so they don't even start until mid-August anyway. And then even part of September. I have an invited talk in September that I have to go to, so I have to do a little bit of prep for it, but just the bare minimum, right, for September. And then October, okay, let's work now kind of thing. I that sounds like it's doable too.
Yeah, and it's kind of that you're making an investment in yourself. It's like charging the batteries so that you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. But even when you start going, it doesn't have to be, 9 to 5 writing, because most people can't do that. I mean, that's the other thing to think about is when you mentioned the rhythm of like doing fun stuff you like to do in the morning and then writing for 3 hours in the afternoon, it also feels like, well, that might be what you could reasonably expect of yourself in terms of focused writing time anyway.
Right. Well, and then it's usually more productive writing, I find, for myself with that anyway.
Yeah. Reasonable expectations. And also, I love this idea of taking part of the summer off, just enjoying, I bet there are not many Augusts that you get to just relax with the kids and not worry about, course prep and all the beginning of the year faculty meetings and things like that.
Well, I was just thinking about that as I was saying it. Is like, oh, I'm not going to have to like be frantically getting my syllabi ready and like print it and all the first day of class things ready. And that sounds so nice. Yeah, it's a lot off of your plate. And so if you're able to not just take it away, but also lean into like, wow, I can replace that with like some really quality time with my family, and I can really appreciate and enjoy this more relaxed pace that I'm going to have. That sounds like a really nice way to transition into sabbatical, because then you're kind of, I think, setting the tone for your sabbatical too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Courtney, this was really so great. I really enjoyed learning about your sabbatical, and I hope that you'll come away from the conversation with some ideas about how to structure your time, and you're maybe feeling like there are some new ways into this challenge of how to structure your time on sabbatical. Yes, this was great. I actually really appreciated thinking through what the days would look like, and the questions that you asked around like, how will you feel a year from now, or what's the ideal way that you want to feel a year from now. I think those were really helpful for me to continue to think about too. So I really appreciate that. Great. Well, thanks so much, Courtney. I really appreciate you taking the time to record the episode with me. Thank you. I hope you found this episode of Sabbatical 101 helpful and inspirational as you think about your own sabbatical. If you want to read more about sabbaticals or get even more support for planning your own life-changing sabbatical, head over to my website,
www.bethanywolinsky.com to read my blog and for more information about my sabbatical coaching program.